the attorney and managing member of the Micklin Law Group, which is a law firm concentrated in men's and fathers' rights in divorce, custody, and family law issues, with offices in Nutley, Montclair, New Jersey. Today's video is part of my weekly how-to series where I go into a little more broad of a topic, try to give you sort of a medium piece of advice to issues that confront a lot of my clients inside of divorce cases in family law in New Jersey. By the way, today's date is January 21st, 2019. This is being recorded in New Jersey, so if you're watching this at a later time or in a different state, some of the things I talk about may not apply or may have changed, so you always want to update that. But with these videos, I tend to have more general topics and advice, so usually you can rely on, at least if you're in New Jersey, that not a lot of it will significantly change, but nonetheless, it's good advice. So what do you want to do if you have a business and you're getting divorced? It's probably one of the greatest concerns people have in a divorce if there is a business. So there's several things that you want to know going into them. First is a couple unique areas about the law in New Jersey divorce when it comes to business evaluation and division. There's one or two things that are very problematic to business owners in New Jersey divorce law, and that is that it does not recognize what's called a minority interest or lack of marketability. What that means is it doesn't adjust for the fact that you may have a business that really nobody will buy. Like if you're an independent contractor and you work out of your house as a 1099 for a company doing computer programming, or if you're a plumber that has a truck and a toolbox, nobody's really going to buy that business. That in most other areas of law, you would have a lack of marketability discount or a minority shareholder. If you were 40% owner and your brother was a 60% owner, nobody's going to buy your 40% because you can't have any controlling interest. So these are examples where other areas of law would adjust the value of your business for these problems when it comes to the actual value and reselling. Divorce law does not. So the first thing you need to do is recognize this and learn these, because your values are going to be inflated, unfortunately, because of it, and you need to know how to handle that. Another important aspect of New Jersey divorce law is the concept of momentum. And this generally applies more to people with a premarital business interest that has taken on a new value post-marriage. Momentum is the concept that after a certain amount of time, a business will take off, and not necessarily because of the efforts of the joint spouses, but because of the prior efforts that may have existed in certain cases before the marriage. So let's say you have a business that you have for 20 years and it has a certain increase in value, and then you get married year one and you're married for 3 years and the business quadruples in size. It's unlikely that the increase in the business was the 3 years of your marriage. It's most likely the momentum that came from the 20 years prior to your marriage. Fortunately, divorce in New Jersey recognizes this concept, but you have to understand it. You also need to try to have some kind of valuation from the premarital portion to show that. The next is you need to understand the main ways that a business will be evaluated, because there's different valuations for different kinds of businesses, and you need to understand them in case the one that's being performed on your business isn't a good fit. Now, some cases they may actually even do more than one, but usually it's going to be one. So there are three main types of business evaluations. There's an asset-based evaluation, there's an earning valuation, and a market value. The asset-based evaluation is basically just adding up the assets and debts. Take the value of the assets minus the debts, that's your value. It's a very simple approach. It's not very useful in small businesses, especially in solo practitioners or sole proprietorships, because there's often a blur between the assets owned by the company and the assets owned by the individual. So you probably want to refrain from this evaluation if you are a small business or a sole proprietor. The earnings value approach is probably the most common approach. That will take your past earnings as a prediction of your future earnings and a certain multiple thereof. It is the most common. It can be problematic in that it's speculative in some ways, and you have to determine if the multiple that they're using is applicable and appropriate in your case or not. And this may be a very intricate question that you may not be well versed to answer, so you do want to find out who you need to speak to find that out. And especially because it is the most common approach to business evaluations. And the last one is market value approach, which basically looks at similar businesses sold in your field or in your area or both, and tries to give a comparative analysis to your business. That's, in many ways, it's probably my favorite approach to it, but that too is problematic because you're not always comparing apples to apples, and every business, especially a small business, will have very unique components that change the dynamics of it, whether it's the owner of it or the town that you're in or your family connections. A lot of issues can affect the market value approach to especially a small business. Now, after that, you also still want to look to what's going to happen in the future, because that's generally not going to be considered very highly in most evaluations because it's speculative. Nobody really knows. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future when it comes to the business and economy and things like that. But you can look to developing trends. Artificial intelligence is a very large developing trend. Online purchasing and marketing is huge. Technology is taking over a lot of industries and eradicating them. So you need to look at, are these areas or any other areas likely to infiltrate your business and greatly affect its valuation in your near or short future? Now, these are just some helpful tips. When you're evaluating a business, you most likely are going to need an expert like an accountant. I'm not an accountant. I'm not giving tax advice. I'm just trying to give you some general background information so you can understand how your business is going to be evaluated and the important issues that you need to start with. But if you are going to have a business evaluated, I'd recommend you look into these issues before you file your divorce if you can, especially if you have a premarital interest, because you may not have considered your need to value that portion of the business. And it may be hard to gather that information if you've been married some time or the business has been open some time. But as I said earlier, it's going to be a very important component to your evaluation. I hope the information helps you. If it does, please like the video and share it so that others see it. If you have any lingering questions I did not address, you can send me a message at brad@micklinlawgroup.com or through any of my social media sites. Thank you.